Hi everyone, it's Nini. Welcome to my channel. I focus just on Midwest true crime because I'm a Minnesota farmer's daughter. I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Toby Palmer. You've been so supportive of me on all of my true crime videos, always leaving wonderful comments that I enjoy reading. I appreciate you so much, Toby. Today we're going to talk about the first murderer, who was called the Craigslist killer. You're probably picturing Philip Markoff, who met victims through Craigslist ads in the Boston area. He's probably the most well-known Craigslist killer, but he wasn't the first. Today we're going to talk about the brutal murder of Katherine Ann Olson. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what Craigslist is, but a brief background. Craigslist was started in 1995 by Craig Newmark. It started out as an email distribution list about local events in the San Francisco area. It eventually became a web page where people could post ads. It spread throughout the United States. Today, Craigslist is huge and available in over 70 countries. This case takes place in Savage, Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis. Katherine Ann Olson was born on September 16, 1983. Her mom, Nancy, was an English teacher, and her father, Rolf, was a Lutheran pastor. She had an older sister, Sarah, and a younger brother, Carl. Her mother described her as zany, quirky, brilliant, funny, a total chaotic mess. She said, quote, "You could follow her track through the house by this exuberant mess she left behind." The first thing you probably notice when you look at pictures of Katherine is her absolutely gorgeous smile. It lit up her entire face. She really did look like she embraced life to the fullest. She enjoyed traveling and the outdoors and spent time canoeing, fishing, camping. In 6th grade, she had to write a book, and in that book, she had a chapter titled Future Me. There, Katherine wrote about how she wanted to be an actress or choral director. She wanted to marry a tall man with dark hair and a good sense of humor. She wanted to have 3 kids, one which would have curly hair just like herself. She attended Park High School in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. Theater was a passion, and a friend said that Katherine brought light to every play that she was in. She was very active in school and community events and participated in choir and church functions. She spent time as a camp counselor. She graduated high school as co-valedictorian. She then decided to attend St. Olaf College, which was where both of her parents attended. She graduated from St. Olaf in 2006 with degrees in theater and Hispanic studies. Katherine loved children, and when she was 24 in 2007, she worked as a nanny. In October of 2007, Katherine answered a Craigslist ad by a woman named Amy who was looking for a nanny for her 5-year-old daughter. Amy and Katherine exchanged a few emails back and forth. Katherine commented to her roommate that Amy seemed kind of odd, but she still decided to go ahead and take the nanny job. On the evening of October 25th, 2007, Katherine drove to Amy's house in Savage, Minnesota. Katherine arrived at the house expecting to find a middle-aged woman, but was no doubt surprised when 19-year-old Michael Anderson answered the door. It was his parents' house. Michael got Katherine to come inside and start to follow him up the stairs to the 2nd level. But when Katherine turned to leave, obviously aware that Michael had been setting her up and there was no nanny job, he shot her in the back with a .357 Magnum. He put her body in the trunk of her own car and wrapped it in a sleeping bag that she had back there. He drove her car to Burnsville Nature Preserve and left it there. He threw her purse and some towels that he had used to clean up blood in a nearby trash can. The next morning, Katherine's purse was discovered, and shortly after that, her car was discovered, and when the car was searched, police found her body in the trunk. It would later be determined that Katherine didn't die immediately from the gunshot. It was assumed that it took her about 20 minutes to bleed to death because she had undone one of her pearls and she was holding it in between her fingers. It didn't take police long to put the pieces together. Katherine's roommate knew that she was going to that nanny job. When they started looking into Amy and that Craigslist ad, they were able to link the phone number and email address to Michael Anderson. The bloody towels that were found with her purse had Michael's name on them. A neighbor told police that they had seen Katherine's car parked in the driveway of the home for about 2 hours that evening. When they searched the house, they found blood splatter on the walls by the stairs. So there was loads of evidence that pointed to Michael. So police arrested him and charged him with second-degree murder. Michael initially said he had nothing to do with Katherine's murder. He said he never even talked to her on the phone. But when police looked into cell phone records, it showed that Katherine called Michael's phone the morning of her murder. He also claimed he had not used Craigslist since January and that his mother and friends had access to the account. But when they looked into the email conversations Katherine had with Amy, they were able to link them to Michael. With all this evidence that connected Michael to the murder, he changed his story and said that he had witnessed Katherine be murdered by a friend of his who thought killing somebody would be funny. Michael Anderson was a high school dropout and socially awkward. He was shy and had a hard time talking to girls. At the age of 19, he'd never even kissed a girl. So he turned to the internet. He posted more than a dozen ads on Craigslist looking for sexy voiced women and models. Michael's defense team had psychiatrists analyze him, and they diagnosed him with Asperger's syndrome. The defense said this was the reason for the killing. However, Judge Mary Thiessen would not allow the Asperger diagnosis to be mentioned during the trial because she didn't feel there was enough evidence to relate that diagnosis to the murdering of Katherine. Defense claimed the shooting was not premeditated. They said Michael's only intention was to have sex with Katherine that night. They said Michael's actions after he shot Katherine proved that it was not premeditated, such as using towels that had his own name on them to clean up the blood, to show that that wasn't planned in advance and he must have just grabbed something in the moment. They claimed it was similar to an 8-year-old who broke a cookie jar and was trying to clean up the evidence. From what I gathered, and I could be interpreting this incorrectly, it didn't seem to prosecutors that Michael's motive for luring Katherine to his house was anything sexual. They feel he created that fake Craigslist ad to lure someone to his house just to feel what it was like to kill somebody. On April 1st, 2009, Michael was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Michael's defense filed an appeal, citing how the judge had not allowed the Asperger's diagnosis and saying that it should have been allowed during the trial. In October 2014, the Supreme Court of Minnesota upheld the guilty verdict. Anderson never showed any remorse during the trial. He never showed any emotion. A friend asked him why he didn't plead insanity. Michael said, "Because I'd have to pretend I'm sorry." And then he smiled. Tell me you're a sociopath without telling me you're a sociopath. During the sentencing, he was asked if he had anything to say, and he said no, but his attorney did read a statement saying, quote, "He expressed his deepest regret for his actions," end quote. Something tells me that's more the attorney's words than Michael's words, in my opinion. Katherine's mom, Nancy, said the last time she saw her daughter alive was when she was singing in the church choir at Richfield Lutheran Church. The next time she saw her daughter, she was lying in a casket at Morris Nilsson Funeral Home, cold and smelling of chemicals. At the sentencing, she talked about how she had to restrain herself from leaping over the bench and hurting Michael the way he hurt her daughter. Don't mess with mama bears, people. Katherine's father, Rolf, said Michael was not just a murderer, he was a thief of the future of their family's story. At the sentencing, he said, quote, "After 24 years of living with and shaping Katherine, it was thrilling to see how her life was unfolding. Mr. Anderson stopped all of that," end quote. Katherine's sister Sarah spoke at the sentencing and talked about how she struggled to fall asleep at night because she was haunted by images of her sister's murder. She was haunted by, quote, "Katherine's screams, the gun, her body in the trunk, and now the real bloody images of my sister. When will I sleep again?" Katherine's younger brother, Carl, said how much he leaned on his sister for support, and she helped lead the way for him through high school and college. He said her death really sent him spinning. The parents of a person who committed murder are often not looked at as victims, but in my opinion, they are. Sometimes, yes, the way they raise their children might have played a part in how their children turned out. Obviously, your childhood impacts you, but they end up losing a child too, either by life in prison or through death. And side note related to this, I highly recommend listening to Susan Klebold's TED Talk. She's the mother of one of the Columbine murderers. And her TED Talk relating to being his mother is absolutely riveting. At Michael's sentencing, Judge Thiessen did acknowledge that Michael's parents were victims, and she said, "I feel so sad for you. I can't imagine what it would be like to live in a house where your son committed such a horrible act." Katherine's gravestone is etched with the words, "The girl who looked like sunshine." which is how a child described her following her death. Rolf said the years following Katherine's murder led him through a crisis of faith and made him look at what forgiveness actually meant. He said, quote, "That is what we have done with the situation with Katherine's murderer. We had released his toxic power from our family so we can move on. I found great comfort in the fact that Jesus went through horrible experience in this world and came back, and love wins. Life wins. God is more powerful than the evil in this world." End quote. Forgiveness is a huge thing. It does benefit the person who is forgiving more than it benefits the person who's being forgiven, but it's not an easy thing to do. I love what Katherine's mom said during the sentencing. Referring to Michael, she said, quote, "I refuse to carry him around with me. He is heir to me. Others will have to pray for him." End quote. And maybe that's not related to forgiveness, but I think it is so admirable to say, you hurt me, but I'm not going to let you hurt me any further by letting you occupy space in my mind and my heart. That takes a lot of strength. There's a Facebook group related to Katherine that has been active since the days after her death and is still very active today. In October 2021, Nancy posted, quote, "Here it is 14 years since Katherine left us. We miss her every day. But as I've said to others, the rawness gets better. What's tender is not knowing what she'd be doing at this point in her life. Kiss those who are important to you. Do something for others. Dance, sing, talk a lot, drink coffee, be dramatic, leave things unfinished all over the house, read a book, eat chocolate, process something with another, do it all over again tomorrow. All these in celebration of her spirit." Katherine definitely seemed like a bright light that was put out way too soon. It's just so sad looking at photos of that beautiful smile to know that somebody stole her future from her. At least thanks to technology, her killer was able to be found rather quickly, and it didn't have to be drawn out too long for her family. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.